And it's almost like a magic wand because you just can't ignore it, and you can see it straight away. You're in the packing shed and you're like, why is that happening?
Hello, my name's Dr. Joanne Freeman from Honey and Fox, and welcome to another episode of Food Waste Matters. Now, in today's episode, we're focusing on a fruit that's a staple in most Australian homes, the banana. A staggering 5 million bananas are consumed every day in Australia, and 95% of households purchased bananas in the past year. So these figures don't just signify the popularity of the fruit, they also highlight the significance of the industry's impact on the economy and on our environment. Our banana industry is rooted deeply in North Queensland, accounting for 94% of Australia's banana production. Now, the production value is approximately $597 million, and it provides about 18,000 jobs. So the industry is a really important part of the overall Australian economy. But, and there is a but, 29% of all bananas are wasted, and most of that waste occurs on the farm. That's a huge percentage of waste. So today we'll explore how the Australian banana industry is addressing that issue of nearly 30% waste. So let's welcome Dr Rosie Godwin, the R&D Manager of the Australian Banana Growers Council, and Melissa Smith from End Food Waste Australia. Hello, Melissa and Rosie, and welcome to Food Waste Matters. So, Melissa, we might just start with you. How did this project come about, and how did the Australian Banana Growers Council get involved?
Yep. Hi, Joanne. Love to answer that question for you. So it all came about. Queensland Department of Environment and Science and Innovation gave us some funding, and then we matched that funding at End Food Waste Australia, and that was to do the Horticulture Sector Action Plan with 2 deep dives into commodities. So then we had to find some industries who were willing to come on board, and bananas and melons were our industry leaders who put their hands up to be a part of figuring out where's the food waste happening, what are the hot spots, what are the root causes, and what are the solutions we can come up with together.
And so, Rosie, what made you put your hand up?
Well, it was a little bit of a coincidence because we had already identified that, waste. We were already concerned about waste in our industry, and I wanted to, as the R&D coordinator, and part of our strategic plan is to reduce waste in our industry. So I found out through a mutual contact about the CRC for fight food waste, and so I made a couple of calls and I spoke to some people in there, and they told me that the Horticulture Sector Action Plan was going to be developed, and that was I interested in being involved in the project. And I said yes, we would be, and we would be really interested because that's what we needed to know, is to have a deep dive down into our industry. So this was like a fortuitous perfect match for what I was wanting. So we jumped on board sort of with alacrity.
So, Rosie, tell me a little bit about the banana industry and about the waste problem in the banana industry.
Well, the banana industry is predominantly, it's the biggest horticultural commodity in Australia, single horticultural commodity. It is worth about $600 million a year, and it is economically and regionally an important industry in North Queensland, where 94 or 95% of the industry is located. We are a mature industry of mainly family-run farms with a few corporates, but we've identified over time that we want to make our industry more efficient, and also we knew that horticulture across the board has a problem with food waste because of the perishable nature of our product, and we know that a lot of waste occurs on farms. So I wanted to look at this sort of sustainability of our industry and the social license, and also just to reduce that degree of waste that's occurring on farms. So that's why I was interested in the project.
So, Melissa, tell us about the process of developing this deep dive into the banana industry.
Yep, sure. And some of the stats that came out from all this, and using other work that's already been done as well, is knowing that there's about 100,000 tonnes of bananas are wasted each year. So that's about 4,000 semi-trailers full of bananas getting wasted each year. And growers themselves tell us it's about up to 30% of the crop doesn't leave the farm for various reasons. And we always want to make it really clear that we don't blame growers. We know that growers would love to see every banana they grow get eaten. That's their goal. So there are all these reasons that the waste is happening, often out of their control, and that's what this plan was about. So what we did was we got some industry experts together. We had an advisory panel for bananas, for melons, and for whole of hort, but I'll just focus on bananas for this conversation. And that was from growers. We had smaller growers, we had family farm size growers, we had a large cooperative, we had some corporate growers. Then we also had people from the markets, from the wholesale markets. We had people from freight industry. We had people from retail. We had some scientists who specialize in bananas. And a couple of people from government. So really comprehensive group of people who all know a lot about bananas were on our advisory panel. And we had 2 workshops with them to talk about what are the hotspots, where are you seeing banana waste? And then what are the root causes of it? We did that in the first workshop. And then this was with the research team from CQU. They were our great research team. And then they put together all that information, did interviews with everyone, and then we came back and talked about solutions. Here's a long list of solutions. They'd also done a big literature review in the background to understand what's happening around the world with bananas, with food waste, and what are some solutions that other people are employing, and from the interviews. So we had a long list, and then we put that through 4 criteria. It was what's financially feasible as a solution, what's technically feasible. So, you might have a great solution, but it's just way too expensive, or the kit required is just not worth it. What keeps it in the human food supply chain? So we're not looking for solutions that take it out of the human food supply chain. So compost and things, that's not where we're playing with this one. And then what reduces it by the most tons? So that was the 4 things. We came up with 9 solutions from all of that work, boiled it down to what are the 9 solutions to help the banana industry reduce their food waste.
So can I ask you both, what were some of those root causes that your working group highlighted?
Some of the number one root cause that we hear from growers, and in fact ABARES have done some great work here interviewing growers from all different commodities, and the number one cause is weather, pest and disease. So that's the big one. Weather, not a lot we can do about other than preparing for it, good forecasting, all those sorts of things. That sits in the weather. But another root cause, interestingly, is data, lack of data. And we know, and in fact, it was one of the banana growers in the panel who said, as soon as I measure my waste reduces. And it's almost like a magic wand, because you just can't ignore it. And you can see it straight away. You're in the packing shed and you're like, why is that happening? And so people tend to address, data for data's sake is not useful, but data to focus your activities, very useful. So those are a couple of the root causes. Labour can be a root cause, although more around skill than supply these days.
It was a little bit of an oversupply too, where growers tend to want to grow a little bit more than their contracts are for, because they want to be absolutely sure they can meet their contracts, which is understandable. But then along the supply chain, then you get the next level up, also wanting to have a bit of an oversupply too, so that they are definitely sure they can meet their contracts. So that causes a little bit of compounding. So I think with better predictions or more understanding, of course, you can't help the weather, as Melissa said, but that was another issue about growing a little bit too much for what the market needs.
Just designing the solutions around that oversupply one, which is a really tricky one because people are running a business, they want to meet the market. The last thing you want is to suddenly have a need for bananas. It's not something you can click your fingers and they appear. There's a whole growing cycle. So you want to be ready for that. But so the solutions around that are communication along the supply chain, improving that communication from growers through to their end customer so that you can plan ahead, better understanding of how the market operates. When are the periods likely of oversupply, being able to really plan ahead as much as possible, and better contracting, that's in there as well.
So, Rosie, with your conversations with the industry, what are some of the challenges they face?
Well, of course, as Melissa mentioned, there's the pest and disease issues, and bananas are very susceptible to many pests and diseases because they're very easy to eat. They're just like a big giant herb, and they're growing in a very wet, humid environment, which is really conducive to insects and pathogens. So we've always invested in our R&D program in plant protection projects and integrated pest management so that we can grow to best management practice methods, and so that we can reduce the impact of these pests and diseases on our product when it finally reaches maturity or even has to be left in the field. It is very difficult though, because as we all know, the consumers often do expect to have a 100% perfect yellow banana with not a single speck on it. And I do think that is an unsustainable way. If we really want to reduce food waste, then there has to be some education of consumers to accept bananas or any other fruits that may be slightly less perfect, so that the growers who are growing a wonderful product aren't getting their fruit rejected because it isn't the right shape or because it has a couple of minute blemishes on it because of a insect walked along it when it was developing or something like that. So I think there's work that has to be done in that area as well, because a lot of product is discarded because it doesn't meet specifications required by the retailers.
Yeah, and that is one of the 9 areas of action, is specifications. Is that what you're going to ask, Joanne?
I was going to ask, and it might be a bit controversial, is just with the standards that are expected, is that driven by the retailer? Is that driven by consumers, do you think?
It is column A and column B, most definitely there. And, there's a big part to play here for everyone along the supply chain, including hospitality and food service, including the wholesale markets. We want to be careful not to just throw the dart at the easy target, which is retailers, and there is more to be done, but we have a really good idea of what needs to happen, and it's a comprehensive look at what's going on with specifications, from how are they set, are they fit for purpose, to how do we review them, to how are they widened, because that's something that happens on a daily basis. Specifications are widened, but that comes down to relationships and communication again. And then let's do a cost benefit analysis on, if we widen them for cosmetic purposes, who's it going to affect? We don't want to just, there's been some actually really interesting behavioral research on, if consumers are suddenly given a piece of produce that's not how they're used to seeing it, the waste will then just happen either in their home or at the retail. So we can't just push the waste somewhere else in the supply chain. It has to be a whole systemic approach, which is what we've designed.
Yes, that's right. I agree. And also, you can't just widen specifications and then suddenly get flooded with too much fruit, because that will not work either. So
Oversupply.
it has to be done in a strategic manner.
Yep.
So, ladies, we have this fantastic sector action plan now for the banana industry. What's next? How do you keep that momentum going?
Well, implementing it is definitely where we're at, Joanne, and we are 100% determined that this is not just a plan that sits on a shelf, it's an action plan. So we have a roadmap in the action plan for what needs to happen when to help the banana industry hit that 50% reduction rate. But we're already out there at End Food Waste Australia. We are trying really hard to bring together the funding to pay for the implementation of the next stages. So we're already aiming at things like plans for getting more to food rescue. How do we streamline the food rescue of bananas? Because it works really well in some cases, it's not happening in others. So how do we get a more streamlined approach there? That's one that's already underway. Looking at data. So how do we measure? How do we have a standardized approach to measure food waste on farm that is recognized? So if you do it and you report on it, then you get recognized for that. A certification. We're working with Fresh Care to build a certification for those who want it, because we know that it could help you access more markets. There's a good profit for if you can reduce food waste. Not only are you using more of your inputs, but you can then be rewarded for that by being able to access more markets. So those are some, and the specifications piece, policy. We're doing a big policy scan right now to work out what trading practices are out there, whether it's government policy or business policy, that are actually creating more food waste, and that includes for bananas.
So, Rosie, can I ask how are you keeping the banana growers motivated, or are they motivated? How are you engaging?
Yeah, I think that our banana growers are motivated, and that's what drove me in the first place to try and investigate this, because our growers don't want to be wasting fruit that they've spent a lot of time and money growing to up to a food standard. So they really would like to reduce their waste, and they would like to do something with their bananas far more than just turn it into compost and put it back out on the field, which is currently what happens with many growers, though some growers are already addressing their waste and already have reduced it by a lot by finding other purposes for it. However, we would like to roll it out a little bit more widely across the industry. So I'm very interested in looking for value adding, other alternatives, ways of processing, other uses for processing bananas that can still go into the human supply food chain, but they stabilise the fruit so that any fruit that isn't going into the fresh supply chain can be stabilised and used in other ways. So I am very interested in finding ways to use those bananas, and as well as that, it will improve the profitability and sustainability of our industry, because growers will be getting an income for the bananas that maybe don't go into the normal supply chain, and a lot of them would like to see that happen.
And so there's not just the Banana Action Plan, Melissa, there's a whole range of action plans now available on the End Food Waste website. So if I can just ask you both the same question just before we finish off. Rosie, if there was one message you'd like to leave us with today, what would it be?
I think that we take food waste really seriously, and that as an industry we are very proactive, and we're looking for opportunities to work with everyone on the supply chain to decrease food waste in our industry and find other ways of adding value to or giving it away to people so that food waste is reduced.
Thank you. And Melissa?
Yes, I would say, if for the on-farm messages, start to measure your waste in the packing shed, in the field if that's appropriate, and I think that then you'll start to see ways to manage it. And if you want a hand with that, reach out to us at End Food Waste Australia, because that's what we're here for.
So thanks very much, ladies. One of the most common messages that is coming through from all our podcasts is about you can't do anything unless you start measuring your waste. So thank you both for joining us today, and I look forward to revisiting you both in 12 months' time to see how far the banana industry has come. Thank you both.
Right.
Thank
Thank you. Okay.
So that's another episode of Food Waste Matters. And today we've gained some great insights into the Australian banana industry and their efforts to reduce food waste. A special thanks to Rosie from the Australian Banana Growers Council for sharing her time and knowledge with us. And if you want to access the Banana Sector Action Plan, head over to End Food Waste Australia's website at www.endfoodwaste.com.au, and you'll find the Banana Action Plan, but you'll also find several other industry sector plans available to you. And also, for all our previous Food Waste Matters podcast episodes, you can head over to our website, Food Waste Matters, www.foodwastematters.com.au, where you can also subscribe to get notified. And finally, if you'd like to be a guest on Food Waste Matters to share what you're doing to fight food waste, just send us an email on foodwastematters@honeyandfox.com.au. So thank you for tuning in, and let's keep the conversation going, because when it comes to reducing waste, every little bit counts. So see you next time.